Editor Philip Turle is covering the summit for us, and we can cross to Rome and speak to him now. Philip, let's rewind for a moment. These tariffs were part of a trade war that began under Biden's predecessor, Donald Trump.
Yes, that's correct. Back in 2018, Donald Trump decided that he was going to put tariffs on imports from Europe, not only Europe, but also from the Middle East, from Mexico, and also from Canada, in the region of 25% for steel and 10% for aluminium. The reason for this was to protect producers of those metals in the United States from what he said was unfair competition, which was undercutting their rates and making U.S. workers poorer. So this time round, there has been a complete shift by the U.S. President Joe Biden, principally because many in the U.S. have said, well, there have been sanctions imposed on U.S. goods going to Europe, for example, on Harley-Davidson motorcycles, which have seen their prices go up from 6% to a 31% increase in tariffs, also on bourbon whiskey, also on American orange juice and other U.S. products coming into Europe. So it's handicapping U.S. industry, and also U.S. producers who use steel from other areas of the world and aluminium have seen their prices go up, so therefore they've had to increase the prices of the goods that they're producing. So the accord today is trying to put a bit more normality into those exchanges, I think welcomed by both sides as a step in the right direction and a severing of the former policies, a breakaway of the former policies of the former President Donald Trump.
Now, for the wider G20 meeting, there are at least 5 drafts, but a final communique is out. What did it say?
Well, this is the communique that I think everybody wanted ahead of the COP26 climate conference, which is kicking off today in Glasgow in Scotland. The words coming out of the communique is that it sends a necessary political signal ahead of the end of the G20 and before the COP26. There was an agreement to limit temperature rises to 1.5 degrees by the end of the 21st century. That's to pre-industrial levels. The only difference here is that instead of it being indicated that has to be reached by 2050, it's now being only described as being reached by mid-century. That is basically because although most countries involved in this would like that carbon neutral area to be reached by 2050. China has said that it won't be able to do that till at least 2060 because it's very dependent on coal. And one of the main causes of global warming is fossil fuel, where it's coal, where it is oil, and where it is gas. So that is what the international community wants to move away from, but there is no agreement on exactly what date carbon neutral atmosphere should be available for everybody. There's also an agreement to finance the poor and developing nations to the order of $100 billion US. That's to help them deal with climate change because they don't have the means to do that. Something that's already been agreed for a while. The delegates meeting here want to see that action taken pretty quickly to help those countries. And there's also an historical agreement to end international financing of coal-fired power stations, something else that the main countries, the delegates of the G20 meeting here, have been wanting to move towards. So there is something positive coming out of this, but let's say there's no agreement amongst all the delegates here to move towards zero emissions by 2050. So still fears that it's going to be pretty difficult for them to reach more of an agreement at the COP26 in Glasgow, which kicks off later today.
All right, Philip, thank you very much, Philip.